My palms were slick, like I'd been holding a greased cucumber for an hour. The paper crackled under my grip, the ink. Weston, my brother. He'd always been the golden boy, the one with the perfect GPA, the perfect smile. Now he was the one with the perfect pile of evidence. This woman, a lawyer I guess, she was pacing the room like a caged bird. Her shoes clicked on the floorboards, a frantic. She kept looking at the stack of documents, then at me, then back at the documents. Like she couldn't decide which was more unbelievable. Weston's handwriting, neat and precise on the outside of the folders, was pure chaos inside. Numbers that didn't add up, names he'd painstakingly. This felt off. A bad dream where the alarm clock is just a persistent buzzing in your ears. Mind you, I hadn't seen Weston in maybe 2 years? Not since the whole blowout over him wanting to disrupt the industry. Whatever that meant. My parents had been beside themselves. He'll regret this, my mother had wailed, clutching a tissue like it was a life raft. He's throwing his future away. My father just shook his head. His jaw tight, the way he did when he was disappointed but couldn't articulate it. The lawyer cleared her throat. So, the recordings. They corroborate everything. Recordings. Right. Weston had this uncanny ability to charm information out of people. He'd always been like that, even as a kid. And he could talk the birds out of the trees, or so my grandmother used to say. I always thought she was exaggerating. Anyway, the lawyer gestured at the pile. This is extensive. And damning. Damning. That's a word. My stomach rumbled. I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning? I think. It was Thursday. Or maybe Tuesday. Does it even matter? The sheer volume of paper felt off weight. This woman, she had this determined set to her jaw, like she was ready to wrestle a bear. I, on the other hand, felt like I might actually fall asleep standing up. I remember once, when I was like 10, Weston convinced me that if you ate enough watermelon seeds, you'd grow a watermelon in your stomach. And I ate a whole bowl. Then I spent the next day convinced I could feel tiny vines sprouting. It was a surprisingly vivid sensation. Almost as vivid as the smell of ozone that sometimes hits before a storm. This room smelled vaguely of old paper and desperation. She picked up a folder, flipping through it with practiced speed. These are the financial statements. Notice the offshore accounts? The shell corporations? I nodded. Because what else was I supposed to do? Weston had always been good with numbers, in his own weird way. He could spot a glitch in the matrix of a spreadsheet like a hawk spotting a mouse. The lawyer's eyes narrowed. And the signed agreements. Forged. Every single one. This was it. This was the moment. The whole room glowed still. The clicking of her shoes stopped. The hum of the ancient fluorescent lights felt there. She looked directly at me then, her gaze unwavering. This is enough. More than enough. So yeah. That was it. The air in the room felt thick. Like I'd walked into a sauna. I glanced at the crooked framed picture on. And under my own chair, my shoelace had come undone. A small, brown loop dangling precariously. She started gathering papers, her movements precise and economical. No wasted motion. Unlike me, who was still trying to process the fact that my brother, had apparently orchestrated all of this. And what did he even want? Money? Revenge? An elaborate prank? I swear, sometimes I think he just liked seeing how far he could push things. Like a kid poking a beehive with a stick. And then he'd just walk away. Leave the mess for someone else to clean up. This woman, she was sliding the documents into a briefcase. The latches clicked shut with a satisfying finality. She looked exhausted, but also kind of exhilarated. Like she'd just won a marathon. I just wanted to go home. Make some tea. Stare at the ceiling. This whole thing. It was a lot. And I still had no idea what Weston was going to do next. Or where he even was. He'd sent me a postcard once, from a place that looked suspiciously like a desert. No return address. Just a hastily scrawled "having an adventure." Whatever. The lawyer zipped up her briefcase. The sound was sharp in the room. She stood, a little straighter now, as if. "Well," she said, and her voice was lower now, less the frantic pacing bird, more just. "Tired. That's that, I suppose. For now." I just stared at her. My brain felt off drain. There was so much water backed up, it was threatening to overflow. I wanted to ask her a million questions. Like, is he going to jail, and did he do all of this, and is this going to be on the news? But the words wouldn't come. They were stuck somewhere behind the lodged debris of my own thoughts. She extended a hand. I took it. Her grip was firm, surprisingly so. "You did good," she said. And that was it. That was all she said about that. I nodded. "Thanks." The word felt small, inadequate. Like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teacup. She gathered her purse, slung it over her shoulder. The leather creaked. "I'll be in touch," she promised. I doubted it. But then again, I doubted a lot of things these days. She walked towards the door. Her heels clicked again, a more measured sound this time. Less panic, more purpose. She pushed the door open, a sliver of. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut. The room felt suddenly vast and empty. The silence pressed in. The pile of papers on the table looked even larger now, a monument to my brothers. Whatever this was. I reached out and touched one of the folders. The paper was cool and smooth under my fingertips. Weston's handwriting. So familiar. So alien. I needed to go. The thought was a faint whisper at first, then a persistent nudge. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, like I'd been standing on a boat for too long. And I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. It smelled faintly of the stale coffee I'd had this morning. Or was it yesterday morning? The lines were blurring. I walked towards the door. My own footsteps sounded loud on the floorboards. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Was there anything else? And anything I was supposed to do? Take a picture? Leave a note? No. Just leave. Outside. The sky was a bruised purple, the kind that promises rain but never delivers. I started walking. No specific direction. Just away from that room, that table, that pile of Weston's perfect, messy evidence. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and the hum of the engine. The radio was on, some generic pop song I didn't recognize. I didn't bother changing it. It was just noise, a way to fill the space where my own thoughts were supposed to be. My hands were still a little damp. I kept flexing them, trying to get the feeling to go away. And I passed a diner, its neon sign flickering like a faulty pulse. Inside, I could see people eating, laughing, living their lives. Normal lives. I wondered what they'd think if they knew about Weston, about the lawyer, about the papers. They'd probably just shake their heads. Or maybe they wouldn't even notice. Most people didn't notice the weird stuff. They just kept on eating their burgers. And I pulled into my driveway. The house, silent. My parents were probably already asleep. They always went to bed early. I didn't feel like waking them. What would I even say? Hey, guess what? Your golden boy is apparently a criminal mastermind. Yeah, that would go over well. I walked inside. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked, each second a small, sharp jab. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. The cold liquid felt good going down. I leaned against the counter, staring at the blank wall. I needed to call the dentist. My checkup was next week, and I still hadn't confirmed. It was such a mundane thought, so out of place in the swirling chaos of the last few hours. But my brain latched onto it like a life raft. Dentist. Yes. That was something I could control. I stood there for a long time, just breathing. The water was gone. The glass was empty. The wall was still blank. The clock kept ticking. I remembered a time, years ago, when Weston. I'd stayed up all night, listening intently, trying. I'd even left out a few crumbs of cookie, just in case. He always had a way of making or, in this case, the mundane seemed terrifyingly criminal. I walked into the living room. And the couch cushions were a little lopsided. I sat down, sinking into the worn fabric. The television was off. The remote lay on the coffee table, a silent sentinel. I picked it up, fiddled with it aimlessly. I could turn on the news. See if anything was happening. But I already knew what was happening. It was happening with Weston. And it was happening to me, by association. I thought about that postcard. Having an adventure. Was this what he meant? Was this his idea of an adventure? Because it felt more like a disaster. A slow-motion, paper-cup-filled disaster. My phone buzzed. I jumped. It was a text message. My heart hammered against my ribs. I picked up the phone, my fingers fumbling. It was from my mom. Did you pick up milk? We're out. Milk. Right. Of course. The world kept turning. The grocery lists kept being made. The mundane persisted. I stared at the message, then at the phone screen, then back at the message. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall. And instead, I typed back, no. Sorry. I put the phone down. The silence rushed back in, thick and suffocating. I closed my eyes. I could still smell the old paper and desperation from the lawyer's office. It was a smell that half clung to me, a phantom scent of corruption and chaos. I thought about Weston's handwriting again. So precise. So controlled. He'd always been good at controlling things. Making them look just right on the surface. But underneath? Pure chaos. Like a perfectly polished apple with a wormhole leading to the core. I shifted on the couch. My leg had fallen asleep. I tried to ignore the pins and needles. It was probably nothing. Just a temporary inconvenience. Like my brother's latest stunt. I hoped it was temporary. I really hoped it was temporary. I remembered a time when Weston tried to teach me how to ride a bike without training wheels. He'd held the back of the seat, running alongside me, his breath puffing in the cold air. Just pedal, he'd yelled. Don't think about it. Just pedal. And then, without warning, he'd let go. I'd wobbled, swerved, and crashed into a bush. He'd laughed. A big, booming laugh. I hadn't thought it was funny then. I still didn't think it was funny now. And he always found my falling hilarious. I sat there for what felt like hours. The house remained silent. The clock ticked. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows across the floor. I could hear the distant rumble of traffic. The world outside was going on. I wondered if Weston was having an adventure right now. And was he on a beach somewhere, sipping a fruity drink? Or was he in a dark alley, counting his ill-gotten gains? Or maybe he was just asleep, dreaming of his next big disruption. The thought made my stomach churn. I stood up. My legs felt stiff. I walked over to the window, pulled back the curtain. The street was empty. A lone cat slunk across the pavement. The air outside looked cold. I pulled the curtain shut again. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know what anyone was going to do next. But one thing was certain, the paper crackle was still in my ears. The ink smudging under my thumb, and the weight of Weston's evidence was pressing down on me. This whole thing. It was a lot. And I still had no idea what Weston was going to do next. Or where he even was. He'd sent me a postcard once, from a place that looked suspiciously like a desert. No return address. Just a hastily scrawled "having an adventure." Whatever. I do not know. You figure it out.